in our apostolic text, I really want to point out that you can see quite clearly that Miriam and Yosef are clearly obedient to Torah. These are two very meticulous individuals when it comes to their obedience to Torah, and that Yeshua was born into this kind of family. And notice that they're awaiting the consolation of Israel. This ultimately, the coming of Messiah is about the kingdom of Israel, because this kingdom of Israel will expand to include the whole world. This is Isaiah. You can hear Isaiah's language in this portion of Luke where he talks about that you will be a light to the nations. This is Isaiah's language. Isaiah clearly sees Israel as a light to the nations in chapter 42 and 49. He's picking up on these themes of Israel as a people who are going to be, the people themselves be the servant, but the servant will also come through this servant. There's a greater servant. This is Isaiah 52:12 to 52:12 to 53:13. And that's the specific servant that's coming out of Israel. And so Luke 2 is often read at Christmas time, but I think people forget that they don't talk about the fact that they're a Torah observant family. That just kind of gets lost in the equation past that. But Miriam and Joseph, they're circumcising their child. They are doing the rite of redemption. They're doing the purification, Leviticus 12. If you look at this family, and they're going up to the feast, as we read later on. So this is a very devout family in their observance of Torah. Before we get to any questions on that section? Yeah.
They're also poor because they
two turtle doves.
Yeah.
It indicates their economic status.
Right.
The Torah allowed for people who were of different economic statuses to bring different types of sacrifices. An interesting one is you can actually bring, this is interesting, you can actually bring flour if you're really, really poor on some of the sacrifices, which I think goes to the issue then that people who have sacrificed before you, their sacrifice will work on your behalf. So it's kind of you kind of get to ride their coattails on their sacrifice.
And pay it forward.
They're paying it forward. Yeah. And you find examples of this in the Tanakh. In Matthew 17, we have the temple tax, and Yeshua says to Peter, "Go and pay that for you and for me." And then you have it with Paul paying for in Acts 21, paying for the Nazarite vow for others as well. So the Torah, in the spirit of Torah, you could actually sacrifice for someone else. You could actually do this, and we actually see this in the Tanakh as well. You go to the book of Job. What do you have happening? You have Job that's actually offering sacrifices for his children as a priest, even though his children are not necessarily in his presence at that time. He's doing this for them. So you kind of see that. Now I want to go to the apostolic, to our Torah portion just for a moment, pointing out a couple of things. It's a huge portion. It takes in chapters 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. We read chapter 22 because if you put together our Torah portion with the Torah portion with the apostolic reading, it's all about male children and their mothers. Really, that's the overarching theme. Okay. So I want to go back to the Torah portion for just a moment and point some things out. I gave you a subsequent handout that was passed around. I passed around to you. I'll get to that in just a moment. Go with me to Genesis chapter 18. Very quick. I'm just going to run through this. Genesis chapter 18. And I want to show you just really quick some things I think are very important. And we're not going to belabor this, but I do want to point it out to you. If you look at chapter 18, it says, Then the Lord appeared to him by the terebinth trees of Mamre, this is Abraham, as he was sitting in the tent door in the heat of the day. So he lifted his eyes and looked, and behold, 3 men were standing by him, and when he saw them, he ran to the tent door to meet them and bowed himself to the ground. So the text tells us that we have 3 men. And in fact, the word used here in verse 2 is anashim. So it's our word for men, straightforward, just look like regular men. Okay, 3 men visit him. We find that as we progress into chapter 19, go to chapter 19 with me, to verse 1, it says, now the 2 malachim, ha-malachim. So now we're told that 2 of these men are malachim. In Greek, we would translate that as angelos, angels. Okay, so one of them is Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh, and one of them is, 2 of them are angelos, or malachim. Malachim means sent ones, messengers. Okay, angelos, messengers, malachim, messengers. Every angel is an Elohim, but not every Elohim is a malachim. You are an Elohim if you are in the heavenly realm. When you come to this realm, you are a malachim, Greek angel. Okay. So we know that 2 of these are malachim, messengers. Now go with me to verse 24 of Genesis 19. This is a pivotal verse, extremely pivotal verse. It says this. It says, Then the Lord, Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh, rained brimstone and fire on Sodom and Gomorrah from the Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh out of the heavens. So there is a Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh on the ground, and there is a Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh in the heavens. Ruh-roh. There are 2 of them, one on the ground, one in the heavens. And verse 24 says, the one on the ground says to the one in the heavens, send down rain and fire, the hail and the fire. So this is what's called binary. It's binary. There's clearly 2. And I've said before that the Hebrew scriptures, in their focus, not in their scope, but in their focus for the most part, are binary. Father, Son, Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh, Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh. It's not until later chapters that we really get into talking about the Holy Spirit. In fact, we only have the Holy Spirit mentioned, the words Holy Spirit mentioned 3 times. Psalm 51, and interestingly, not twice in Isaiah 63. Okay. Where it's Ruach HaKodesh. Okay. Otherwise, you have spirit, you have to kind of determine, you have Ruach, and you're having to determine, is this the Holy Spirit or not? Okay. So here in chapter 19, we have both of these, one and then the other. Okay. Now that brings us to any questions on that? I'm not going to go into that too deep. Bottom line is, I believe that the Malach Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh is Yeshua before we had Yeshua. Okay, and we've discussed this in the past, so I don't want to get too deep into it. But I will direct your attention to the book Unseen Realm by Michael Heiser, who delves into this much more thoroughly. And we've had Michael, and we'll have him back to discuss the angel of the Lord and the whole concept here. But bottom line is, the angel of the Lord, Malach Adonai, is Yeshua before he was Yeshua. But he was on the ground, operational and working on behalf of his people before we ever had the birth and the incarnation.
You said there's one on the earth, one on the sky. Can you show me that again?
Okay, so if you look at verse 19:24. Let me go back to it for just a second. You'll remember that the 2 messengers, the 2 malachim in 19:1, they go on to Sodom and Gomorrah. Yahweh stays back, and he's going to talk to his friend at Abraham, tell him what's going to happen. they're going to end up having a negotiation session where, he says 50, 45. By the way, I was listening to Rabbi Foreman. He argues that, kind of persuasively, that the reason why Abraham goes down to 10 is he thinks that in Lot's family there's at least 10. I can at least get 10 out of Lot's family. It turns out, not even 10, you get hardly any. So that's why he was negotiating down to 10 here. 10 is safe, will be good. If you look at chapter, let's see here. Let me find it here just a second. So in 24, my point is in 24, to your question, is because the way the text reads is then Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh rained brimstone and fire on Sodom and Gomorrah from the Yahweh out of the heavens. So the way the verse reads is there's two of them. So you're going, how can there be, when you read the text, it's not like there's ambiguity. I mean, when I've shown this to,
It kind of looks like it's the same one, but
in Hebrew it's from the one in the heavens. So there's one on the ground, that he's one of the three, but then there's another one in the heavens. So, all right.
Right, just a side question.
Sure.
You said there too.
Yeah.
What I'm hearing is that apparently one on the earth told the one in heaven to lay down brimstone.
Yes.
So does that mean that the one on the earth has less power than the one in heaven?
No. I don't hold to that. I hold that they both are equal, co-eternal. Everything about them is equal.
I thought that the Father always is on his throne, he never moves.
Yeah, that's because you're never going to leave the ultimate throne of heaven unoccupied. So there's always got to be an occupant of the throne of heaven. And yet, here's the mystery. In some mysterious way, God can be in two places at one time. And he can be on the throne in heaven, and he can be down here on the earth at the same time. He can step into time and has no difficulty moving in both spheres as one, and as yet appearing to us as if separated. And yet it's the same one. It's two, and it's one. It's a mystery. God can be at two places at one time. I think the difficulty is that we think in terms of time and space. So we struggle with how does God enter time and space and be at two places, and God's like, I'm not even worried about that. I can be so many places at one time if I wanted to, and still be one. It's a mystery, and we're never going to wrap our heads around it. It goes beyond us to grasp fully who this is. That God can become man. And that God can take on human form and live as a man is.
So limiting for him to put that
Yeah,
on that
yeah.
I would think.
Yeah, there are limitations.
I mean, he's not limited, but
Yeah. And yet in his humanity, he still retains his divinity. Which is why while he's here on this earth, he's able to do things that are truly miraculous. And yet he has to eat. He has to sleep. All the things that humanity has to do, or the restrictions of humanity, he also voluntarily puts those on.
Well, you don't necessarily have to eat, I mean, like 40 days without eating,
Yeah,
right?
he can go 40 days without food. Although interesting enough, Moses does that supernaturally sustained.
No, even without food and without water.
Moses does it twice. He does it one time and then comes down, shatters the tablets, goes back up. We don't know how much time in between. I'm hoping he can grab a quick meal in between. But Moses goes twice without food or water for 40 days, and Elijah goes without food or water for 40 days.
Which says to me that there is something supernatural.
It's absolutely supernatural.
You can't go more than
Right.
3 or 4 days without water.
Yeah, it's supernatural. Yeah, it's supernaturally sustained. You can go 40 days without water. 40 days without food. You can't go 40 days without water. So the fact that the miracle to me isn't the 40 days without food, it's the 40 days without water.
Right.
So believe me, I've been in, when you go to Israel, you go out in the desert, it's very, very hot. I mean, by 10 o'clock, we were getting to Masada. We wanted to get to Masada when it opened at 9 a.m. because by 9 a.m. in the desert, it's already 90 degrees. I mean, it's already warm in the summertime. And you're sweating and you don't realize you're sweating. So even though you could say, well, I can just sit. I can just stand here, and if I just stand here, my body will perspire without movement. I'm not having to move. Now, if you start adding movement to that, even more so. But it's supernatural. It's supernatural when you can go 40 days without water, and especially in that climate. Especially in that climate. I want to get off of this. Okay, so bottom line is that we have the angel of the Lord. Now, I talked in chapter 22, we have Yitzhak, who is, he's asked, Abraham is told, go and sacrifice your son as an olah, as a whole burnt offering. And in a sense, we have him resurrected. I put that in quotes. That somebody that's heard my stuff on this in the past, where do we have evidence that Abraham, something is up with Abraham, that he knows that this child is going to be resurrected?
And his wife gave birth when she was beyond.
Yeah, his wife gives, that's prior to this. Yeah, his wife gives birth when she's unable to bear children. But in the text itself, yes.
He tells his wife and his servants, I think, that we will look and we will return.
Yeah, he tells his servants, we will go up, we will worship, and we will return. And there's one right after that, yeah.
God told Abraham that in Isaac, not Ishmael, would the nations be blessed.
Right.
So Isaac had to carry on.
Yeah. That's the part of the promise, absolutely. But in the text also he says to him, he says, God will provide. Not God has provided. He should have said to Isaac, well, God has already provided a sacrifice. You're it. He didn't say that. He says, God will provide a sacrifice. So even Abraham is hedging on this. Okay, God will provide a sacrifice. And we will go up, we will worship, and we will return. And the writer of Hebrews 11 says, Abraham had resurrection faith. He believed in the resurrection. That God will, because of the promise, he believed in the promise that through Isaac, all the nations of the earth will be blessed. Through this seed. Even if he killed him, he would raise him up. Okay, and like as Chris said, the reason he could believe this is because he had seen life come out of death with the birth of this child. His wife should not have been able to have children, yet she was. Yeah, question? Comment? Good. Okay. All right, so that brings us to our Hathor portion. Go with me to 2 Kings chapter 4. We're going to walk through this. 2 Kings chapter 4. 1st and 2nd Samuel, 1st and 2nd Kings in most of your Bibles. 2 Kings chapter 4. And by the way, I'll get to this in just a moment. Now we're dealing with Elisha, who was the disciple of Elijah, Eliah. So we have Eliah, Elisha. Okay? So if you're reading 2 Kings chapter 4, and I'll get to this in a moment. 2 Kings chapter 4, what we hear in these texts, it's deja vu all over again. By that I mean we've heard this before. And I'll talk about that in just a moment. So take your handout I gave you. Take your handout I gave you. And I want to read the first paragraph here. This is from the JPS commentary Hathor by Michael Fishbane. And I like Fishbane for this reason. He was one of the individuals, scholar on the forefront, Jewish scholar on the forefront of intertextual connections, looking at intertextual connections and tying them together, doing it in essence what Rabbi Foreman does in his approach. Same thing. But Fishbane was kind of a pioneer in this. So the first paragraph says this: several features link the Torah portion and the Hathor readings. The first is the annunciation of childbirth. In the Prashah, Abraham is at Mamre when he sees three visitors and immediately extends hospitality to them. Immediately thereafter, the patriarch receives a divine promise that, quote, at the same season, next year, Sarah will have a child. There is no statement that the annunciation to the barren woman is a reward for hospitality, But just this is the explicit theme in the Haftorah. In the episode about the woman from Shunem who is rewarded for her hospitality, with the announcement that, quote, at this season, next year you will be embracing a son. Connection. A significant difference marks the destiny of the two children. The child of Abraham and Sarah, Isaac, is subsequently bound on an altar by his father at God's command, but is not slaughtered. A ram serves as his substitute. By contrast, the son of the Shunammite woman dies in childhood of unexplained causes, though he is eventually restored to life through Elisha's miraculous intervention. Okay. All right, so now go with me to the text. We're going to be looking at 2 Kings chapter 4. Picking up our reading in verse 1, it says this: a certain woman, the wife of one of the disciples of the prophets, you got to catch that, cried out to Elisha, your servant, my husband, is dead, and you know how your servant revered the Lord. And now a creditor is coming to seize my two children as slaves. So we have to stop there. A lot of stuff in that. First of all, her husband had been one of the protégés of the prophets, and now she's left as a widow. In the ancient Near East, if you don't have children and your husband dies, you're in a bad way. You're in a very bad way. So she has two daughters, or this, you go back here, my two children, okay? Creditor is coming to seize my two children. Now, that goes to the Torah, because the Torah says that one of the things you can do to release debt, one of the ways you can pay off debt, is to have your children work for the person that you owe. And as they work off the debt. Okay? So it's debt slavery, so to speak. I don't want to use the word slavery because they're not technically a slave, but they are bound to the person that they work for. Indentured servant, yeah. So that they work off the amount of debt that is owed, okay, for the person that they're in debt to. Here's what she says, verse 2. Elisha said to her, what can I do for you? Tell me what you have in the house. She replied, your maidservant has nothing at all in the house except a jug of oil. Go, he said, and borrow vessels outside from all your neighbors, empty vessels, as many as you can. Then go in and shut the door behind you and your children, and pour oil into all these vessels, removing each one as it is filled. So she went away and shut the door behind her and her children. They kept bringing vessels to her, and she kept pouring. When the vessels were full, she said to her son, bring me another vessel. He answered her, there are no more vessels, and the oil stopped. She came and told the man of God. He said, go sell the oil and pay your debt, and you and your children can live on the rest. So she's able to, through this miraculous gift of oil, is able to pay off her debt and to have enough to live on as well. And it would seem that the oil just keeps coming. That's what it looks like. A lot of oil here, and she's enough oil that she's able to pay off the debts and she's able to have enough to live on. Okay. So here you have this widow woman who is. Now I'm going to tell you about. We'll talk about the other one in just a moment, because Elijah had a very similar story in 1 Kings chapter 17. We'll go there in just a moment. Okay. It's a very similar story. Yes.
One of the important things that stood out there, sometimes gets overlooked. The prophet told her to pay her debts first.
Yes.
And that's very important.
Absolutely. Yeah. She's in debt. So he says, look, the first thing is, pay off what you owe. And then you'll have whatever's left over, you'll have plenty to feed yourself. So it wasn't just, forget the debtors and forget the fact you owe. But you can see here God taking care of a person who is a widow, and the prophet is concerned for her, and yet it's done through miraculous fashion. It's done in a miraculous way. Just pour a little bit of oil in each of the containers. these containers that you can get, all the containers you can buy. And poured a little bit of oil in them, and as soon as she poured oil in them, they were filled. It's a miraculous thing, so it's quite incredible. Yeah, other questions, comments?
I'm just thinking, wasn't there a famine in the land too at that time?
The text doesn't specifically say that, not here at least.
Okay.
Other places it does, but not here directly.
Because I was just curious how everyone got the money to, because there was a famine in the land.
Yeah. No, it doesn't say specifically here that there was any family. Fascinating text. Okay, so this is one of the women, okay, in the first part here. Okay, now we move to the other part here. Look at verse 8. And one day Elisha visited Shunem. A wealthy woman lived there, and she urged him to have a meal. Now, there's food involved in both of these. We'll get to that. Once she said to her husband, I am sure it is a holy man of God who comes this way regularly. Let us make a small enclosed upper chamber and place a bed, a table, a chair, and a lampstand there for him, so that he can stop there whenever he comes to us. I got to stop here just to say, it was interesting. When I read this, I'm putting myself for just a moment back into this because I can remember in Bible college, I'm far away from home. I left and I go to Chattanooga, Tennessee from Anchorage, and then I moved to Springfield, Missouri. So I have my family around, and it was cool because one family at the church that I attended, and one family at the college I attended, kind of adopted me. And it was cool because they gave me a key to their house and said, we'll make a room for you, and anytime you want to come there, you can just crash and study, and if you need a quiet place and all that. So it's kind of cool because, so I understand, I get this when I read it because it's like, I just have a key to their house. It was like I can come and go as I want, and I can use the room as I want, and they kind of viewed it as, hey, I'm a college student, and it's like a way to help out, and I know they're away from home, and so our home is your home, that kind of hospitality where it was like, if you need to come here and crash, we give you the key. You don't have to tell us when you're going to be there or whatever. You come and go as you please, and we have extra rooms in our house. These were both older couples, and so. No, actually, they're younger couples by my estimation now that I get to where I'm at. But at the time, I got to tell you, at the time, couples who were in their 60s seemed very old to me. Okay, but that's when you're 20. 60 seems, like wow, those people are ancient. They're like, So they were both in their early 60s, and so it was cool because they, like I said, they would just let me come and go as I needed to. And I had in each of those houses, I had a room that was mine, and they would just say, you can stay overnight if you need to. You can come here and study, eat whatever you need to. So it was kind of cool. So I can understand, I can see this happen. And here's a woman who says to her husband, and by the way, I think women pick up on godliness. I've said this before. They pick up on godliness quicker than men do. And another individual has said recently, and it's something that I'm finding to be more and more true, and that is the longer I live, the more the Holy Spirit voice sounds like my wife's.
Why?
So, yeah, I don't know what that means, but I'm coming to that to be true as well. But in the scriptures, it just seems like women get it. Guys don't get it half the time. I mean, the classic example of guys not getting it is with Manoah and his wife.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, Manoah, she comes and the angel of the Lord comes and says, "You're going to have a child," and she says, "We've seen God." And Manoah says, "We've seen God, and He's going to kill us." And his wife goes, "Well, if He was going to kill us, would He have done that already? And why would He promise to give us a child if He was going to kill us?" She's rational, and her husband's like, "Hey, we're going to die." So I understand this. When I see this, I appreciate the hospitality here. I can see it. So continuing on, it says, one day he came there. He retired to the upper chamber and lay down there. Goes to his room, and he said to his servant Gehazi, "Call the Shunammite woman." He called her, and she stood before him. He said to him, "Tell her you have gone to all this trouble for us. What can we do for you? Can we speak in your behalf to the king or to the army commander?" She replied, I live among my own people. What then can be done for her? He asked. The fact is, said Gehazi, she has no son, and her husband is old.
What does that mean?
I don't know what that means, the saying. That's what the text says. So, verse 15. Elisha says, call her. He called her, and she stood in the doorway. And Elisha said, at this season next year, you will be embracing a son. She replied, please, my Lord, man of God, do not delude your maidservant. In other words, look, if you're just playing with me, man, don't be doing this. I can't emotionally deal with this. Okay. So if this is some kind of game you're playing, if this is just words you're speaking, back it up. Just take it back, because I can't emotionally go through this. I think she wants a son. I think she clearly wants a son, but she's like, I can't emotionally be put into a position where I'm hoping for this. Don't give me false hope. Don't try to convince me that this is a possibility when it's not a possibility.
Don't flatter me.
Yeah. Don't mess with me. Verse 17. Look at this. The woman conceived and bore a son at the same time the following year, as Elisha assured her. The child grew up. So narrative time just bypasses here really quick. We don't know how old he is. One day he went out to his father among the reapers. He cried to his father, oh, my head, my head. So something happens, we don't know exactly what. It doesn't go into any detail. Other than it's his head. It says it twice. So he said to his servant, the father, carry him to his mother. He picked him up and brought him to his mother, and the child sat at her lap until noon. And he died. I want to make sure. Okay, so the text is clear that the child dies. And I got to say this, being a parent and now having grandchildren soon. As a parent, you can think of nothing more agonizing than to lose a child. You're supposed to precede your children to death. I mean, that's the hope. You don't want your children to die. You never want to bury a child. And you sense the pathos of this. That look, if you're just, and then you can see her thinking, why would you give me this child if you were just going to take it away? Why do this to me? Okay. So the child sits on her lap until noon and he dies. She took him up and laid him on the bed of the man of God, and left him and closed the door. Took him to Elisha's room. Then she called to her husband, please send me one of the servants and one of the she asses, so I can hurry to the man of God and back. But he said to her, where are you going? Why are you going to him today? It is neither new moon nor Sabbath. Okay. She answered, it's all right. Okay, let's need to go. Then she saddled the ass, said to her servant, urge the beast on so that I don't slow down unless I tell you. She went until she came to the man of God at Mount Carmel. When the man of God saw her from afar, he said to his servant Gehazi, there is that Shunammite woman. Go, hurry toward her, and ask her, how are you? How is your husband? How is the child? Conversation. We are well, she replied. But when she came up to the man of God on the mountain, she clasped his feet. Gehazi stepped forward to push her away. But the man of God said, let her alone, for she is in bitter distress. And the Lord has hidden from me and has not told me. So you have to know yet what's going on. Then she said, did I ask my Lord for a son? Didn't I say don't mislead me? Again, you're hearing some bitterness here. Okay? Like, why you do this to me? What was the purpose of giving me a child if all you were going to do is take the child away? It's like, it doesn't make any sense. I would have been better off never having the child if this is all you were going to do to me. You can see her angst and her nervous here a little bit coming up. He said to Gehazi, tie up your skirt, take my staff in your hand, and go. If you meet anyone, do not greet them. And if anyone greets you, do not answer him. And place my staff on the face of the boy. But the boy's mother said, as the Lord lives, and as you live, I will not leave you. So he arose and followed her. Gehazi had gone on before them and had placed the staff on the boy's face, but there was no sound or response. He turned back to meet him and told him, "The boy has not awakened." Elisha came into the house, and there was the boy laid out dead on his couch. He went in, shut the door behind the two of them, and prayed to the Lord. Then he mounted the bed and placed himself over the child. Imagine this scene. He put his mouth on his mouth, and his eyes on his eyes, and his hands on his hands, as he bent over him. And the body of the child was warm, became warm. He stepped down, walked once up and down the room, then mounted and bent over him. Probably doing the same thing again. Thereupon the boy sneezed 7 times. Now, I don't know why the text has to tell us to sneeze 7 times. 7 is like one of those numbers that just could have said 6 or 5, 8, but 7.
That's the same amount of times the girls need to sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Good point.
Not all over its face.
Yeah. But just the fact that he sneezed 7 times.
Face to face, I mean, that's.
Yeah. And the boy opened his eyes. Elisha called Gehazi and said, "Call the Shunammite woman." And he called her. When she came to him, he said, "Pick up your son." She came and fell at his feet and bowed to the ground, and she picked up her son and left. So here is Elisha doing a resurrection miracle. In a sense, we're going to have all 3 sons resurrect. Isaac will resurrect, this boy will resurrect, and Yeshua will resurrect. There is life after death, and it's being displayed to us throughout the text, throughout the Hebrew Scriptures. Go with me to the middle paragraph on page 1 that I handed to you. It says the 2 narratives of 2 Kings 4 are completely intertwined. At first sight, there seems to be little connection between them. The first portrays a miracle of food for a dead or widow, while the second describes the resurrection of a wealthy woman's son. But at a deeper level, intriguing relations emerge. Food provides the first point of contact, since its absence in the first text is the reason for the miracle of plenty, and its presence in the second text, as Sherry, is the reason for the annunciation of the child's birth. Significantly, in both cases, we also have the query, "What can I do for you?" or "What can we do for you?" and the subsequent fulfillment of the request. The third point of contact revolves around the theme of children. They are taken and restored in the first case and announced and restored in the second. Furthermore, in the performance of the miracle, the same phrase is used in each story. In the first narrative, the woman is told to go in and shut the door behind you when she pours the oil. While in the second account of resurrection, Elisha himself went into the child's room, actually his own guest room, and shut the door behind the two. So there's these connections between the two. Okay? That's why they're put together and to be read as one story. One narrative.
What is the significance of going in and shutting the door behind you?
I don't know, but it's private for sure. It's a private miracle. Both of these are private miracles. They're not there for the public. So it's something that he says, I want you to go in. Both of them, it's a private thing.
That's in the New Testament too.
Yeah.
Yeshua does that.
There's a lot of private miracles in the New Testament, apostolic text, as we're seeing here. Yeah.
Well, that actually makes sense, because often when somebody's passed, there are mourners around, and they're gathered around to help them to go through the mourning process. So
Right.
that would preclude that. Exclude
Yeah,
that.
here we don't have them yet. It's still so new that we don't have it. But
She didn't tell anybody he died. She didn't
Right.
even tell her husband.
yeah, she didn't even tell her husband that he died.
Well,
She
it doesn't
just
say that.
She
We don't.
just left.
Yeah, doesn't tell us. But okay, now go with me to 1 Kings chapter 17. 1 Kings chapter 17. All right, look at verse 8. 1 Kings chapter 17. 1 Kings 17, verse 8. It says, "Then the word of the Lord came to him, saying, Arise, go to Zarephath, which belongs to Sidon." So Sidon and Sidon and is on the coast, way up top. It's just outside of Israel proper, which is interesting. It goes outside of the bounds here into Zarephath. He says, "See, I have commanded a widow there to provide for you." So he arose and went to Zarephath. And when he came to the gate of the city, indeed a widow was there gathering sticks. And he called her and he said, "Please bring me a little water and a cup that I may drink." And as she was going to get it, he called her and said, "Please bring me a morsel of bread in your hand." So So she said, as the Lord your God lives, I do not have bread. Which is interesting because the other lady said that the Lord your God lives too, which is an oath formula. And she says, only a handful of flour in a bin and a little oil in a jar. And see, I'm gathering a couple of sticks that I may go in and prepare it for myself and my son that we may eat and die. And Elijah said to her, do not fear, go and do as you have said, but make me a small cake from it first and bring it to me. And afterward, make some for yourself and your son. Huh?
Perhaps.
Yeah, perhaps you didn't understand what I said. I mean, the first thing is we only have a little bit of flour and a little bit of oil. So we're going to eat that and then die. And he says, maybe I didn't make myself clear. Make it for me first. What? I want you to make me a small cake first. All right. By the way, every time when I read this, I don't know how many of you, those of you that fly, you know that they say this on the airlines. They say, should we have a decrease in cabin pressure? Make sure that when the mask comes down, you help yourself first, right? So, then help others, right? So don't start helping other people because pretty soon you're going to be gone. So put yours on first, and then you can help other people. Here it's kind of reversed. The prophet says, no, you make me some first. Okay? And look what happens. He says, for thus says the Lord God of Israel. Now look at this. The bin of flour shall not be used up, nor shall a jar of oil run dry, until the day the Lord sends rain on the earth. Now here we have a famine. Lack of food, no rain. So she went away and did according to the word of Elijah, and she and her household ate for many days. The bin of flour was not used up, nor did the jar of oil run dry, according to the word of the Lord which he spoke by Elijah. Okay. Deja vu all over again. We've heard this. Now look at this. Now verse 17. So, continuation. Now, it happened after these things that the son of the woman who owned the house became sick. And his sickness was so serious that there was no breath left in him. And what we said, it's about your breath, it's about breathing. So she said to Elijah, what have I to do with you, O man of God? Have you come to me to bring my sin to remembrance and to kill my son? And he said to her, give me your son. So he took him out of her arms and carried him to the upper room where he was staying and laid him on his own bed. Then he cried out to the Lord and said, O Lord my God, have you also brought tragedy on the widow with whom I lodge by killing her son? And he stretched himself out on the child 3 times, and he cried out to the Lord, and he said, O Lord my God, I pray let this child's nephesh come back to him. Then the Lord heard the voice of Elijah, and the nephesh of the child came back to him, and he revived. And Elijah took the child and brought him down from the upper room into the house and gave him to his mother. And Elijah said, see, your son lives. Then the woman said to Elijah, now by this I know that you are a man of God, and the word of the Lord is in your mouth is the truth. So both of them have a miracle of oil that sustains a widow, and both of them resurrect a son that has died. Okay, very similar narratives. Look at the last paragraph I gave you on page 1. A quick reminder to us to us all that originally 1st and 2nd Kings were one scroll and were later separated. Those who had read the whole scroll and came to chapter 4 would have been reminded of the earlier miracles of Elijah, the mentor of Elisha. In 1 Kings 17, Elijah performed a miracle with food, telling a widow at Zarephath that her jar of flour shall not give out, and the jug of oil shall not fail until the day the Lord sends rain upon the ground. Subsequently, he resurrected the son of the mistress in the upper chamber of the house, where he had been a guest by stretching up over the child 3 times. In the case of the miracle of the oil, neither narrative explicitly mentions God as the cause of the miracle, but in both events, the women do as the prophet says. In the case of the resurrected son, however, the narrator of Elisha's narrative only remarks that the prophet prayed to the Lord, whereas in 1 Kings 17, Elisha prays, O Lord my God, let this child's life return to his body, nephesh, while with the narrator adding, the Lord heard Elijah's plea. So I think these miracles do a couple things on a grander scale. They clearly establish the authority of the prophet. Okay, to do these kind of miracles, to take and have oil last for innumerable amount of days, and then to be able to resurrect a child. So both of them are clearly, it's the grace of God as well, but it's also established the authority of the prophet.
I was also thinking that when Gehazi would see his staff on the child, it didn't work, and it kind of reminded me of when Yeshua sent out the disciples to heal people, and the people came that went that was possessed by whatever. Well, your disciples were not able to
Right.
help my son, and then just sort of reminded me.
Yeah, okay. I see what you're saying. Yeah, Gehazi is, he sends the staff out ahead and puts the staff on the child, and that doesn't bring the child back. So, interesting, yeah. Now, I'll get to this in just a moment. I'll read something. I'll go to the second page. Check this out. I had never caught this before. Check out the second page. It says in 2 Kings 8, 4-6, we read, the king of Israel was talking to Gehazi, the servant of the man of God, and he said, tell me all the wonderful things that Elisha has done. While he was telling the king of how Elisha had revived a dead person, in came the woman whose son had been revived, complaining to the king about her house and her farm. My lord the king, said Gehazi, this is the woman, and this is her son whom Elisha revived. The king questioned the woman, and she told him, and it goes on, read the narrative, but I had never seen before that there was a further narrative description of what was going on, and that she's talking to the king and relaying exactly what happened. Again, yes.
I find it interesting that these two women had miracles given to them twice.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, revive your son. Yeah.
Revive the son.
And then but then she has trouble with her farm and she goes into the king. So she goes to the prophet.
Right.
The prophet comes to her, and then she goes to the king. So these people are obviously in contact with people who have authority to do things.
Yeah.
And I think that's interesting. Stories pick the same people in that context.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Think of the continuing witness of this event, even after the prophet had left. The woman must have had friends, and they would come over, and she would take flour out of the bin, and the bin would fill up again.
Right. Absolutely.
Or she'd pour oil, and the oil would be full.
Yeah, it never went down. And it's interesting too because we're told that Elisha wants a double portion of Elisha's spirit. And what's interesting is that if you look at the miracle of oil in chapter 17 and compare it with the chapter 4 of 2 Kings, he says the oil and dew will last until we have rain. And when it rains, it'll stop. Whereas with chapter 4, it's just going to keep happening. Okay, so it's a different, it's an ongoing miracle. This one's going to eventually cease. This one is going to continue. And then what's fascinating about the resurrection of the Son, both the resurrection of the Son, and it's interesting because we've said before that Elisha is supposed to have double portion. And later on, Elisha dies, and they're burying a man, and they throw this man's carcass onto Elisha's carcass, and the man arises and leaves the gravesite, and he resurrects. So, fascinating story. These prophets are very interesting people, but you're seeing God's compassion for widows. You're seeing God's compassion for children. You're also seeing the authority of the prophet to be able to raise these children back to life. And here we have it in the Hebrew scripture. And I find this fascinating because if you read Hebrew scholars, most of them will tell you we don't really have the concept of resurrection until we get to Daniel chapter 12. I'm looking at these prophets and saying, no, there was this concept of resurrection. Admittedly, it's one person, but one is a down payment on the rest, and a demonstration that it was possible. It was not without the possibility that a child could be resurrected. Yeah.
The compassion upon
And the feeding of the 4,000, you have 7.
It was more than that.
Yeah, so, you must have the same thing going on. I mean, he's holding bread and just taking bread up, bread's coming out.
Right.
Like,
Just keep-
just keeps coming. It's like, he's able to do the same type of thing that you see the prophets doing. By the way, Yeshua comments on the woman. He comments on the woman in the Gospels, the widow of Zarephath, from 1 Kings chapter 17. He says, were there not? And this got him in trouble. He said, were there not many widows in Israel? And I sent the prophet to the widow of Zarephath, and they're like, what? In other words, I went outside Israel to show you that my ability to do things was not bounded by geography. In other words, it wasn't just an Israel thing. It's a cosmic thing. It's beyond just the borders of Israel. I'm the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, but I'm also God of this world, and I'll be able to do things beyond the borders of Israel. And he gives 2 examples in that narrative. He says, can't God do beyond the borders? And the answer is yes, absolutely. But here we're seeing these narratives in this Torah. We're seeing 1 Kings 17 and 18 overlaying the prophets and seeing that they're both of them are able to do the same types of miracles through the power of God. Resurrection is one of those. Clearly, resurrection is one. So that's the connection between our Torah portion is you have Isaac and the resurrection there, and then you have resurrection here, and then you have resurrection in. We're going to have resurrection in Yeshua the Messiah. But all 3 of these sons miraculously born and miraculously brought back. So there's a miracle in their birthing with all of them. Isaac is past the ability. His parents are past the time in which they should be able to have children. And the same thing with Joseph and Miriam cannot have children. Okay? So, but it's a miracle child. Okay? All of them are miracles. But that matter, every child is a miracle. Every child is a miracle of God. So, questions or comments? Yes.
I'd like to catch one of those fish that when you cut a piece off of it, it grows right back.
Yeah, well, yeah. Those are different waters, man. Those are seriously different waters. I don't know where those are. Yeah. Anyone else? All right.
Like you said before about the widows, why did he choose? There are many widows, but he chose those specific widows, or well, 1, 2, and you're like, well, what was it about them that he chose them? And was it just an area thing, or was it the right place at the right time, or?
No, I mean it comes down to sovereign choice of God.
Yeah.
Also, funny to see that the widow of the prophets sort of was living outside of Israel.
Mm-hmm.
What's the purpose behind that?
Well, I do think there's something that is outside the land issue going on here that demonstrating that God is not bound by geography. That while He is the God of Israel, He's not. When you come to the borders, you see this a couple times in the Tanakh, where both Israel and the nations around her think that the gods are territorial, that they are bound by geography. And you can see in numerous places where they put the kibosh on this, the prophets do, to say, no, you know what, God can go anywhere. Example of this, from Syria, you have a man, it's going to come up later on, a man named Naaman, and he comes from Syria. He's healed by the prophet, by God through the prophet. And then what does he say? He says, really odd. He goes, can I take 2 mule loads of dirt from Israel back to Syria? What? 2 mule loads of dirt? What's that about? Well, if I'm going to worship the God of Israel, I need to have Israel's land in my land. Because this land is from Israel. And so I bring that land over from my land. I I can worship that God, this God, over here. Okay? It's a way of thinking. We don't think that way. Okay? We don't think in terms of God's being territorial. Okay? He's not grown up with that concept. You see Israel buy into this when the king of Meshach, when King Meshach kills the crown prince, the king of Moab. Israel pushes all the way into the Moabite territory. They get right into the gate, right up to the walls, and the king goes up on the wall and he sacrifices his son. And the Israelites pull back. And it says God was angry with them because they gave credence to this notion that, oh, we're in Moabite territory, maybe God will not fight with us here. Lack of faith, territorial thinking. So it's a different approach to what we have.
Is that because all the gods at that time were territorial?
They were, yeah, they were, in the way that they thought, yes.
Doesn't the Bible kind of support territorial by saying we have princes of this area that,
Yes,
so that kind of,
there is biblical warrant for thinking that direction. Yeah. But
But it doesn't apply to.
but El Elyon is Lord of all.
that's true.
So he's trying to get his people to understand that it doesn't matter where he goes or where they go,
He is
there's-
sovereign.
he is there, no matter where they go. So, yeah, the gods are territorial. You know, this is Deuteronomy 32:8. I've established Elohim to govern all the realms for me. So yes. All right.